and he eats like a pig. And the friends were like, no, pigs tend to chew. He eats more like a duck.
Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. Hello, and welcome to another episode.
That's very ominous of you. Hello, children.
I just love the intro every time. We get to hear it. It gets me excited. It gets my juices flowing. I know that we're on another episode of a podcast, and I just get excited.
That's right.
I am Jason Kreidman.
I am Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads. I think we already had that sound.
Oh, okay.
No?
No,
But you're good at that.
I can add some crazy sounds in the future.
Totally should. That will be in post-edit if all of a sudden you start hearing sounds. Alan did something.
I'm having fun with the show.
So, you know me, living on the edge.
Yep.
Walking the line of just the edge in general.
Right. Yep.
Because I do the same thing every day. And a little break from the interview. Well, we've only done a couple
of them, but yeah, we've had a
with
couple.
People. Or the segments.
Yeah.
So this one today, I wanted to talk about a specific topic.
Okay.
And we've done that. We've had like a theme.
Well,
I think
we
had a theme of empathy. We had a theme.
It was Back to School was a couple
Back to
episodes
School
ago.
was one. Yeah.
Yep.
This one is about commitment.
Okay.
I'll define what I mean by this. So we've done now, we're a quarter century of episodes.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, about that.
And I took parenting classes. I've done the meetup groups.
Yeah. I've
been doing these things and been collecting information both in my brain and on paper and on a computer and all these things. And it's become a little bit clearer to me, or at least I've felt like there's some common concepts that allow us to create valuable relationships with our children.
Okay.
And where I'm going with this is that I have developed what I feel is a group, call it a group, is various elements that I feel like are really important to make this relationship with your child. So as such, the very first one is commitment.
Okay.
And so here's what I mean by that. That in order to have a good relationship with your child, the number one thing you have to do, and this is why it's first, is you have to commit that you want to do it.
Okay.
That's what I mean by it.
Yeah.
And actually outwardly committing. So that may mean certain things. It's either, taking action of some kind, making a plan, whatever. And we're going to talk about some of this stuff. And that's what I mean by this. Unless you're forced to listen to this podcast, which, hey, some of you might be by your wives.
Sure.
Yeah. By listening to the podcast, you are in a sense already at that step of committing, because you're saying, hey, listen, I want more information
about this podcast in particular.
Yeah, about our podcast.
Yes,
you're talking about
sense.
Parenting, being a dad, being a husband, that kind of thing. So you, in a sense, you are making that kind of commitment. Mm-hmm. But I want to take it a step further and really solidifying that commitment. Yeah. So that's what the topic is for today. So you're making that decision to sort of feed your brain with information that can be helpful and to do that.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of things out in the world that, talk about commitment. I mean, one of the, very, very famous, think about like Nike.
Yep.
Nike's slogan.
Just do it.
Just do it. I didn't even have to ask you.
Right.
You knew what it was.
Yeah. Besides the swoosh.
That is about commitment.
Yes.
That's it. It's very, very simple. If you want to be an athlete, if you want to, any sport, whatever, you just got to do it.
Yes.
That's their whole concept of and that is about committing.
Right.
You've got to commit to doing it. If you want to exercise, if you want to play a sport, you want to excel at anything, your first step is just committing and making that decision that, hey, I want to do this.
Now, when you say committing to something and you're speaking in terms of your children, just to clarify, you're just saying I'm committing to being a good dad.
Correct.
I'm committing to being a dad or a good dad, kind of what I just.
Well, I think it's about making effort
Okay.
to be a better dad.
Better dad.
Now, however you define that, it's about
Sure.
looking for information,
Yeah.
learning more.
Sure.
Now, I don't think anybody who is a parent says, I want to be a crappy dad.
I'd like to be a horrible
But
dad.
I think there is a tremendous amount of people who are simply going through the process.
And not committing to being a better one.
Correct.
Yes.
They
I
may
agree with
think
that.
that, hey, I'm a good dad. I do this, I do that, I do
Yeah.
this, I do that. And that's fine, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the act and of actively looking to improve what you're doing.
Yeah.
Without, you're going down a slippery slope too when you're always trying to improve because you don't want to necessarily feel like you're never good.
Right.
You can be a great parent
Yeah.
and still want to do things right and do things
Better or
well,
handle situations better in
right.
the future.
Right.
Yeah.
I will say there is a little bit of pressure that comes with that because you feel like you're always trying to be better and that you're never good enough. I mean, that's kind of there is that.
There was a show that came on Netflix that was about, I think it's called Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Oh, yes.
Have you seen this?
Awesome.
Right? Awesome.
Yes.
It was a great documentary about
Love it.
this guy in Japan who has one of the number one sushi restaurants in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that he said in it, he's always trying to improve his technique. I'm like, how much technique is it more? When
For
you've done it for
70
80
years,
years.
80
Yeah,
years.
70
Yeah, yeah.
years or how long he's done it. But
He made a guy spend like years just on making the rice.
yes, and on the egg.
Right.
Yeah, this is like
so
amazing.
great.
It's just such a great example of that. But I mean, I guess that's a little bit overboard when you think
Right.
of those contexts. But yeah, it's
No, you got it.
constantly trying to improve yourself. Even if you know you're the master, there's always there's a lesson that a master can learn.
Right.
Yeah.
And even if you're not doing it for yourself, and here's something that allows you to see that it's okay to continually try to improve,
Yeah.
is that you are doing it for your child.
Yes.
So you are improving and getting new information and seeking, whether it's advice and new ways of doing things and improvements, so that you can help shape a wonderful human being. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really our job, is to teach. As a parent, our
Yeah.
job is to teach, not to necessarily be a parent or a police or a guard or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really about teaching this other human so that they can be self-sufficient,
Yeah.
so that they can be wonderful and helpful to people and serve, however in that capacity. So I think that when most people think of commitment, they probably go down the line of relationships.
Yeah.
And the fear of that commitment.
Well, immediately when you brought up commitment, I think of partnerships and relationships in terms of that. That word always strikes that up for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people, as I said, put it in the context of a relationship or marriage, and they have fear of committing to all kinds of things.
Sure.
So, take some guesses. I mean, I wrote a couple down, but, what do you think is the cause or of the fear of commitment? Like what is the reason people have a fear of commitment?
Maybe they won't be adequate enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a couple. So I wrote down a couple that I knew
Yeah.
and what I felt, because I went through this when I was
Okay.
in my relationship. I was a bachelor and had a fear of commitment and stuff.
You were a dude, essentially.
I was a dude.
Yeah.
And I look at it and said, okay, well, what was my fear? What was my fear of committing? And part of it, I think, the fear of failure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to commit to something if I think there's a chance I might fail.
Sure.
It's just ego.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
There's the fear of being rejected.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're talking about a relationship, there's a fear of being rejected.
Yeah.
What about the fear of making a wrong decision?
I think that would be my number one. And going down the context, I'm not a big fan of being rejected. I'm not being, that's the whole thing too. And then failing is a whole other thing too, because I don't like failing.
No male
No
does.
one likes that. Yeah. Exactly. And that being said, yeah, making the wrong decision. Have you ever read a book and about like midway through you're going, why am I reading this? This is horrible.
Right. But then that's how you view it.
Yeah.
Which when we get into a philosophical
Yeah, no,
conversation.
I can go down there with you.
Right.
Yeah.
About, is it a wrong decision?
Right.
What are you learning from it? Because a lot of times the fear of commitment, and I think this happens for both men and women, is that there's a fear that there's maybe something better else out there.
Sure.
And that, like, especially when you go and you get married,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, well, is this the best that I can get? I mean, let's be honest. We're kind of saying,
Yeah.
I mean, you say that to yourself with
Yeah.
saying, hey, okay, I know these are all the expectations and the things that I have in my brain. Is this person going to be able to, like, am I going to be able to be happy in that capacity
Yeah.
and do that? And it's a crappy thing to think about, but it's reality. We're being honest.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is something. It's,
Well, especially if you think highly of yourself. In some context,
Right.
If you have
Thinking
a
you're
high
better than the
opinion-
other person.
or if you have a high opinion of yourself or what you think you deserve in
Right.
life,
Right.
then one thing it does propel you to do is to make your career different and change it. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, and that was because you did not want to settle for certain things that you just didn't want to settle for. So you chose that path. That being said, you can also carry that over, and it could kind of be a negative detriment
Sure.
to your relationship if you carried over that. Well, I can always do better. And you move
Right.
on.
Oh, absolutely.
Because everyone's better in some capacity in one
Well,
way, shape, or form.
I say there's the big E word comes up. I hate this word. Expectations. I am now calling it the E word. It's one of the worst things in the world. It's caused havoc all over the universe. It's worse than religions, as far as causing war. It is expectations in relationships and friendships and any family and all these kinds of things. It causes, and firsthand for myself, I know that the expectations has caused real issues for me.
Yeah.
Internally as well.
Gotcha.
Where I have my own expectations of, even just with this podcast, here's my expectations of what I'm supposed to be getting out of this and what is success or how many people should be listening. All of that.
And then you need me to go, don't worry about it. It's going to come.
Versus just doing it.
Yeah.
And my wife is really good at this because, she lives a lot smoother in that aspect by not having those kind of expectations on me. Whereas I'm somebody who puts expectations on everybody, and unfairly.
Yeah.
She won't.
Gotcha.
And so it's so much easier. It just is. It's easier, I think, probably for her, and it's easier for the people around her.
Well, that's great that you have that to kind of have as a partner.
Yeah.
Because they can teach you how to be a certain way to not have.
Sometimes it's frustrating.
Of course, I'm sure it is.
But other
That's
times
your
it's incredible.
expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because you have an expectation of any kind of what you're going to get out of something, whatever. Some people, said about the fear of commitment, though, could be trust issues.
Yeah.
Just they don't want to go into a relationship because of past hurt or something like that.
I know a lot of people who get into the situation where they bring their past relationships into it, and so therefore it kind of goes back to your expectation thing as well, because they're expecting things that they previously experienced are going to happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so these are all ones we talk about, like fear of commitment, which I think some of these lend themselves better to dealing with a child. Mm-hmm. But I think these next three that I have are much more conducive to dealing with children. And let's call them excuses.
Okay.
Why somebody wouldn't commit to this idea of, improved parenting or seeking something else.
Yeah.
One is just not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
They don't even know how.
Yeah.
I don't know where to get it. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know that information exists.
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever. Another might be not enough time.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's actually going to take too much effort. I don't have the time to read this stuff.
Right.
I'm so busy worried about this, and this.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it.
I got to put food on your table. I
Right.
can't be a good dad at the same time.
Right. Or you're easily distracted.
Yeah.
There's just other things. Other things are, and what you're doing is by saying, if you're not doing it, it's just not a priority for you.
Yeah.
And it's not, when something is that important, it's not a burden. It's like making a good relationship with your marriage.
Sure.
People say, well, it's too much work, but it's not supposed to be, I wouldn't say hard work. It's not supposed to be work that you don't want to do.
Yeah, I always was against the idea that the relationships take a lot of work. I'm like, well, no, I don't think of it as work. I think of it as things that I want to do because I value my relationship with this person. So it's not like I have to do it. I want to.
Right.
And I think when you say it takes a lot of work and it kind of, I don't know, puts a little too much emphasis on the work part and not enough on the, hey, this is what I need to do and want to do.
Yeah, well, I'm actually wearing a bracelet right now. that says, I get to. I got this at a seminar.
Did you?
Which is exactly that. It's like, instead of I have to,
Yeah.
or whatever, it's like, I get to do this.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in a relationship. It's like, I get to be able to do these things.
Yeah.
For my wife, for my kids, for whatever.
Yeah.
And this idea of fearing by not knowing or thinking that you have not enough time, or excuses or whatever. So that's really what I want to get to the heart at, is like, what do you think keeps people from wanting the better relationship with their child? Because I don't think, like I said, anyone sets out to say, I want to have a bad relationship with my child.
Exactly.
They don't.
Oh, it'd be full of neglect and pain and frustration.
No. So people that just choose and say, well, you know what? It's the way that the cards are dealt. This is the way, a higher power is, and I just either know the information or I don't.
Right.
What is it about? So, are they lazy?
Yeah, it's kind of a general.
It's very general.
Yeah.
They think that they're maybe not, like I said, I think some of those of like thinking that they're going to make the wrong decision.
So therefore, just don't put the effort
I don't know how that applies to your children. Like somebody.
I can see that maybe they experienced something through their parents,
Mm-hmm.
and so therefore they're afraid they're going to pass that on.
So I'll give you an
pull
example.
back.
I have had or been in situations where I have seen extreme struggle by the parents. In other words, the children are doing something or acting a certain way, and it has caused very high level of stress and everything on the parent. And I saw this, witnessed it. It's happened more than once. And I didn't say, oh, hey, blah, 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 this is how you have to do it, whatever. I said, gosh, I've been in that situation so many times. And so guess what I did? I ended up going to a class or reading a book
Right.
or whatever to do that. And the person typically was, oh, wow, that sounds great, and then doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's either the pain is not enough, there's not enough pain that they're doing, but yet they will continually complain about it. I've heard it firsthand.
Oh, yeah.
Continually complain. My kid did this, my child did this, whatever. It without the idea of doing anything about it.
There's a lot of people who wallow in that self-pity, that martyrdom, that things happen to me, that things are, I find that to be the case with a lot of times with almost anyone who has a lot of negative things happen to them simultaneously all the time. Mm-hmm. They wallow in it. They think that's the way things.
So there's a pleasure in being miserable.
Exactly. They'll say it isn't, but there's a kind of a weird, sick, twisted pleasure in the amount of misery that they're caused by, because they're not taking responsibility for controlling their destiny. Life is happening to them. I was an example of that. When I was younger, life happened to me and things were wrong, and I didn't have a good upbringing, and I didn't have enough money in this context. And then what snapped for me after a series of losing things, including my car at the time, I just moved to San Diego that year, I stopped doing that. I literally snapped my head. What? Why am I doing this to myself? And I didn't. I never.
Like the negative things.
I realized I was not admitting that I was drawing in my own destiny. I let the world take control over my destiny, and therefore I just kind of went for the ride and I hope things worked out. And when they didn't, I blamed the world and I blamed everyone else except myself, because obviously I'm a victim.
Right.
I'm not responsible for any of these things. And when I stopped doing that, I literally snapped my head. It was like that. I was like, screw this. Why am I doing that?
How old were you?
This is when I
last year.
Well, 3 days ago. No, there was two spots in my life where I did this. Once when I was 17, I just stopped being shy. Okay. I was like, why am I being shy? I don't understand why I'm doing this. And then I just stopped. And not to say it took me a while to kind of warm up to certain things, but I just made an active decision to commit to not being shy. Then the second one was fairly recently. It was right before I got into the SEO game. It's actually what made me get into SEO, is that I was
internet
marketing, I should say. Yeah. Then I got into the field where I got into to be a loan officer, and I wasn't making the money I wanted to, and things were just not working out. And I just moved to a new place, and everything sucked. So I made an active decision. Why am I putting up with this? And I was probably, I want to say about 10 years ago, maybe I would say 8 to 9 years ago this happened.
Yeah.
Made a decision. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go find another job somewhere else. I don't know what it's going to be. And I went on Craigslist, looked for jobs, got my first job doing this. But it was like a very, very, very active decision at that moment.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not going to allow
And it
life
is
to take
as
over.
easy as just making that decision.
Snap decision. That's all it was. Because I at that point realized that I was allowing things to take control of me rather than me taking control of my own life and taking responsibility for it. It's my fault.
So it's fear.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm trying to get to the gist of it. It just takes making a decision. I mean, you think of people who are really successful in whatever capacity, whether it's love, money, power, friendships, whatever. They make effort and they make that commitment to do it.
Yes.
I mean, so they make that decision. They're able to make that decision.
Yeah.
So being indecisive is probably a killer.
It is.
Of
It's poison.
Right.
In a lot of ways. I mean, because I know I'm still struggling with that. Being indecisive about doing this or putting this website up versus this one, and wanting to do a million things. It's nice to have a guy that who's a little bit more decisive, because we can just do things together. And I could come up with an idea, and you'll be like, all right, let's do that, and then we'll just sit.
Well,
down
it's
and
funny
pick a
how
time
there's
to do
certain
it.
things in my life that I am really decisive over. I mean, and that's just how I've been able to move forward with things. And then I find that there's things that I'm not. As an example, there's a reason why I bring my food every day is because I'm indecisive when it comes to where I'm going to eat.
Where you need to eat.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
If I was to go out to lunch every day, I wouldn't eat because I'd be like, where should I go today? Where should I go? I would have to write a list of like 20 places to go and then just check it off because that's just one
Spin a
area.
roulette wheel.
And it's FOMO. It's the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
It is. It's like, what am I going to miss out? So that's one of the things about, the fear of commitment. It's like, is there something better else out there? I take it down to a lunch idea. If I have this burrito, am I missing out on the taco?
Exactly.
It's that little stupid thing. But that's really, I think that's what it comes down to. So I'm trying to understand and put it in the context of, from a parenting standpoint, is that we all, I think, down deep, everybody wants to be a good parent.
Yeah.
Just
I agree with that.
Most of us, almost all of us, just don't know how or what that is. I mean, if you didn't have a role model, I had amazing parents.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I had my children, I realized I really don't know what I'm doing. It wasn't until my second child, my first one, I was sort of in that boat of like, okay. I mean, my wife would say, hey, can you should read that. Or, hey, you can do that.
Well, you did have an advantage to kind of play the other side of it, is that you had good parents. And so you learned by some examples, hey, I'm afraid. I don't know what's going on, but at least I know.
I think that at that point it was ego.
Okay.
It was probably ego on the first time around of saying, I don't need advice.
Oh, you were in that.
Like, I got it. I got this.
Got this.
Yeah. I see all these people that have kids.
Yeah.
I got it.
I'm gonna breeze right through this.
Yeah, I mean, I can handle this if all these other people can handle it. What am I gonna? I'm not gonna do. What am I? My kid's not gonna turn out delinquent.
Yeah.
And then you start to realize how much of an impact you have over another person's life,
right?
And how amazing that impact can be, and how much. I mean, just not only how you affect it, but how it affects you, and even to the negative. I mean, to see how worked up or negative I can get as it relates to parenting.
Right.
It's the stress at night when we're trying to put the kids down and I'm tired and there's an argument going back and forth with the child. I mean, I'm arguing with a 5-year-old.
Right.
And my stress level is increasing, my heart rate's going. I'm like, there's got to be better ways of dealing with this stuff. It just has to be.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's why I said for some people, it just doesn't affect them enough.
Yeah. And that goes, and then, I mean, we can tie this into a lot of areas of life besides parenting. It goes to work. It goes to a lot of things. I'm not saying that you have to constantly push ahead and get ahead of everything you do, but that is one of the inhibitors. Is that kind of like,
just okay with status
quo?
I'm
okay with this. I'm perfectly comfortable with even misery. I'm comfortable in misery.
But that's why I said if you can put it on or take it away from you.
Yes.
And put it on, would the child benefit from this?
Yes.
Is my child going to benefit from me understanding that yelling doesn't help?
Right.
Or that there might be a better way to make this decision, or there might be a better way to handle when he, did something to his sister,
right?
Or
right.
Whatever it is. It's like, this is going to help the child in some capacity. I guess then the argument on the other side could be, how much is too much?
Yeah.
If you're always working, and I could probably be somewhat guilty of that because I'm always seeking, always searching. It was funny, someone had come to me recently and had asked if I was going to one of the, I go to a lot of these courses and things of like self-improvement. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of coursed out. That's the term I used.
Yeah.
I said, I'm just kind of coursed out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to just lay low for a little bit.
Yeah. Let me absorb what I've learned.
It's just, through the podcast, I get a chance to obviously delve into a lot of different topics.
Yeah.
And so I am seeking in that manner, and I call it seeking, which means, just looking for information and sort of knowledge and expansion and stuff. But sometimes it's like, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're always seeking.
Yeah.
And instead of just being
or doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of circling back with this, the point of this podcast was about commitment. And the idea, like I said, I've come together, I've brought together these points and there's 7 of them. I will say there's 7 of these points. Okay. That the first one and the most important one, or I should say, well, maybe not most important, but at least the first step, if you will, is that commitment.
It's and that's a fairly interesting adage that comes with even people who are getting off of what do you call it, Alcoholics Anonymous or something. Like they have to commit to try to get off that. They have to commit to it. The first step is making that step,
right?
And that's kind of a
right. You know what? It was interesting. So we had a guest, Scott, who came in about finances.
Yeah, right.
And the first step was committing to doing your finances.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's not that this is that much different. It's just, if without that commitment, you can say and do and try all these different things and get all this new information, but you really have to establish the commitment from the beginning to say, you know what?
Right.
I really want to make a difference here. Yep. I really want to affect my children in a positive way. I really want to learn new things. And that's why I'm doing this podcast.
Sure.
It's, I think I've learned a great deal of information, but I learn as I go. I'm learning this stuff and the feedback from people listening, the feedback from other, there's professionals that I've connected with now.
Yeah.
It's really, really been positive and has a positive impact on me because I'm learning.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's, of course, me seeking it out
right.
and wanting to learn. But
and wanting to communicate that to other people as well. So
and I think, there is that certain level that people will say, well, when is enough is enough. And I can only seek so much, like me wanting to take a break from courses.
Of course.
But I think your children deserve that.
Yeah.
Every child deserves to be happy and be in a wonderful environment. And if you can help create that and improve yours and just make your life a little bit easier. Well, that's what I think people don't realize is when you do make the effort, it actually makes your life easier, not harder.
Yeah, right.
So people might see it as like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to a class. I don't want to read a book.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have time for that.
Right.
Like my wife when she came home from the first parenting class, and I was like, I am not wasting my time on a parenting class.
Yeah.
That was my attitude.
That's hilarious. You're so the antithesis of that now.
Yeah.
Like you've taken courses and you're trying to learn and now you're trying to educate.
Yeah. At the time it was ego saying, it's like, listen, I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
You know what? I know this is, I had good parents and I know what we're doing. We've just had our second kid. And then I was like, whoa, wait a second. Actually, I think it was maybe it was right as our second kid was born, our daughter.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, maybe I do need to do something. And then part of it was looking at myself and being like, I'm so stressed out.
Right.
It's got to be easier or there's got to be a better way to do this. And so, I think people struggle with that. And like you said, they're happy to be miserable. I think I have fallen over time into that category sometimes, whether it's with work or whatever. It's like, I've got to be so busy and so miserable thinking that that's the way that I have to get ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's just not true.
Right.
It's not true at all.
Yeah.
So commitment is the number one, or at least the first element that we're going to be talking about. And on future episodes, we're going to be talking about some of the other elements.
Okay.
And we'll introduce that. So I just wanted to bring that in a little bit different format for tonight. So
cool.
Any other final words?
No,
we
no.
didn't talk about your fear of commitment.
We kind of went into it. I mean,
totally-
a lot of the things
you got unscathed.
Yeah, no. A lot of the things are basically, even in relationships in general, or even when you get close friendships, even these things come up. But I imagine with kids, this is even a bigger thing. And I believe that when you commit, and that's why I tried to elaborate on that right in the beginning. It's like, what am I committing to? I'm committing to children, but I have enough. I had kids. I did my part in that regard. Now what? Like, what am I committing to when you do have the kids? And like you said, it's basically being a better dad and constantly making improvements and husband and partner and provider, all those things in one. And part of being dad and being in a relationship with somebody is that, like you said, husband or partner, or however you want to put it, and making those commitments. And that's a really big step. I think when you admit that to yourself, that's one of the things I keep reiterating. When I admit to myself that I need to take control of this situation, I need to make an effort to make these things better.
Right.
I can't.
And you need to be okay with also, making mistakes and and that's part of it too. I mean, there's a lot of other elements about that.
Well, it comes with understanding.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like, you have to have a good self-acceptance.
Sure.
It's accepting that, at the stage that you are now and saying, you know what, I'm okay or I'm good, but I could do things a little bit better.
But and that's part of being better.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, when you're
versus being down on yourself.
Well, when you understand yourself,
I'm horrible as a parent.
No, but when you understand yourself better, then you allow yourself to make those mistakes, and then you just say, "Look, I'll improve it next time."
Right.
But I'm okay. I'm a human being. I'm not a perfect dad either.
Today wasn't so good. Yes, which I think I had told you is like, there was a day, it always happens, but where I got my dudes to dads, badge revoked. It was like I just did not have a great day.
Yeah.
I may have been a really good husband.
Yeah.
I was not a good dad, or vice versa. Or I was a great employee, or entrepreneur today. I was not a good husband today.
Yeah.
And so you have the ability to start over the next day.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny. I was just trying to teach my son that, because he was saying, "Oh, I'm horrible at this,"
Yeah.
He was doing something outside or whatever, and I said, "Well, guess what? You were an awesome son today,
Yeah.
and you were, this, that, and you were a great brother.
Yeah.
So guess what? You get the chance to do, you can't always be wonderful.
You can always be bad at it. Try it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, that's commitment,
Right on. I like it. I dig it.
and we will see you next time.
All right. Commit to us tomorrow.
Commit to being here next time.
Next time. Exactly.
See ya.
Take care, guys.